Civilization isn't a dream, and it's not freedom, and it's not democracy. It's fuel. Vaclav Smil, he had an interesting quote, and he said that civilization is an energy system. If you take the energy away, all your gods disappear. The stores go empty and the lights go black. And the empire dies in silence. Think about this. Everything around you runs on energy. Your food, your phone, nations' armies, your economy. Our food is grown by machines and transport is driven by oil. The very internet that I'm on right now runs on data centers that suck electricity like, I don't know, wildfire. And think about it, even war. What's a fighter jet? A fighter jet is just a flying oil tank with some missiles attached to it. No empire has ever risen without mastering energy flows. Power here is the real religion. So let me give you a quick walkthrough of the history of human energy, if you will. So human beings, for 2.5 million years, we were hunter-gatherers. So between 2.5 million all the way to 10,000 BC, the primary source of energy was muscle and fire. Then around 10,000 BC, something happened. We came kicking and screaming to this agricultural era, right? So we started seeing the precursors to growing food. So the agricultural era lasted from 10,000 BC all the way to 3000 BC to the early Egyptian dynasties. Again, primary source of energy, muscle, animal, labor, and fire. Now, from there, we start entering the Bronze Age. So from 3000 BC all the way to 500 BC. So if you're thinking 500 BC, think of the times of Alexander the Great. In this time, primary source of energy was wood, wind, and water. So from there, we start entering the classical empires, which is 500 BC all the way to 1600 AD. So you could think about all the way from the Roman Empire to the Ottoman Empire. And the primary sources of energy were, again, animal power, mills, and again, the precursors to early engineering. Then something happened called the Industrial Revolution or the Industrial Age. And this starts in 1750 all the way to 1900. And the primary source of energy is coal. So think of like coal steamed trains running on tracks and things of that sort. Then in the 19th century, which is called the Old Age of Empire, the oil boom hits. So from the 19th century till today, our civilizations run on oil, gas, and electricity. And now in the 2000s, in our era, we are attempting a shift to renewables like wind and solar. But that still only accounts, I think it's less than 50% of our energy. So if you think about it, every shift from energy source took centuries. But now we act like we'll transition to clean energy in one election cycle. And that's just not accurate historically. In other words, you can't app your way out of physics. Let me give you another example. Let me tell you what it takes to make a loaf of bread, or the energy in a loaf of bread. Because the miracle food, if you will, is not the miracle of food, it's the miracle of gasoline. So let me give you an example. These are the steps to make bread. You need fertilizer, which is made from natural gas. This is called the Haber-Bosch process. So that's the first step. Step number 2 is you got to plant it. So planting and growing. And for planting and growing, you need tractors, sprayers, and just diesel-powered everything. Then step 3, we have to harvest it, meaning you have to collect it, and you have to store it. So harvesting and storage. And for that, you need propane dryers and elevators, and you need grid power. Of course, if you're making bread out of wheat and grains, step 5 would include milling, which you would need electric machinery. Step 6, you got to bake the bread, the baking, which involves either gas or electric ovens. And then, of course, the final step, which seems benign, but it's not, which is packaging. Think about it. Every convenience store, every supermarket you go to, right? It's oil-based plastics. And then, of course, you need an infrastructure for the retail, climate-controlled stores. A single slice of bread is powered by pipelines, machinery, coal plants, and diesel engines. You're not just eating carbs. You're eating petroleum in a crust. So to break this down even further in numbers, a single loaf of bread has approximately between 100 to 200 calories per slice. But the total calories or expenditure of calories in fossil fuel energy to make one slice of bread takes between 1,400 to 2,000 calories. So I'll let you sit with that for a second. Again, civilization runs on energy. And there's pillars to this. So we talked about growing food, fertilizer. So the first pillar is ammonia, because to create fertilizer, you need ammonia. So ammonia turns to fertilizer, which equals food. The second component, or pillar, if you will, is steel. With steel, you make machines. Of course, you also make machines for war and for industry. The third pillar, very obvious, go to a grand city, say New York or London, and everything's made of cement, right? Cities, bridges, roads. And of course, the fourth pillar, as I mentioned, plastics. Everything from your medicine to your Twinkies are packaged in plastic. So if you take any one of these away, the modern world would collapse in 30 days. And it won't be with fire and fury like Daenerys Stormborn. So it'll be in silence. It would be with empty shelves, with no fuel. It would be just dry taps with no water. And there would be no way to post about it because you would have no electricity. Now, politicians, they're, for lack of a better word, full of shit. Because they love to say things like, we're going green. But solar, as fantastic as it is, isn't a miracle because you can't store the sunset, at least not yet. And again, solar and wind, they're still intermittent. And let's say things like storage for tech, it's expensive and limited. And our infrastructure isn't ready yet. Our grid, the world we created, we live in, our civilization, is still powered by fossil fuel. So here's what they call, I think it's the Jevons paradox. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So it's basically efficiency, or the more efficient we become, just makes us consume more. So green growth, according to this, is still growth, but growth still burns. Okay. Now, I want to talk about something related to energy and fast forward a bit now to the 1960s and talk about OPEC. And for those of you who don't know, OPEC is basically the Organization for Petroleum Export Controls, right? So let me be clear about something. The US, or any country for that matter, doesn't bomb countries for freedom. You bomb them over fuel. Energy isn't just about running your car. It's about who gets to write the rules for civilization. So let me go back to OPEC. OPEC was formed in the 1960s. And the purpose of OPEC was to coordinate global oil supply among these key producing nations. So the nations that are in OPEC, to give you just a few examples, would be countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, and they set production quotas. Essentially, they control the supply and demand. And OPEC controls over 40% of world oil supply and has about 80% of the known reserves. And oil is literally the bloodstream of modern civilization. And again, OPEC Since they control supply and demand, that's the group holding the knife, if you will. So now, again, we fast track again, modern times. 20 years ago, Iraq, 2003. Now, you heard in the news that this war was about weapons of mass destruction, or WMDs. But that's not quite the case. During the time, Saddam Hussein began pricing Iraqi oil in euros and not US dollars. So, to put some context to this, in OPEC and in most nations in this time, every time you sold a barrel of oil, the exchange was done in US dollars, hence the term petrodollars. So the US always got a cut of every barrel of oil sold anywhere in the world. So since Saddam Hussein changed to euros, this challenged the petrodollar system. And that's, again, the foundation of the US global economic power. So he did this in 2000. So within 2 years, Iraq was invaded, Saddam was captured, and oil went back to being sold in dollars. The petrodollar is the real empire. And when you threaten it, you don't get a memo, you get a missile. So let's go to today now. Today, we dream of a clean future, of wind farms, solar cities, and zero emission. But reality is slow, it's stubborn, and it's built out of concrete, copper, steel, and most importantly of all, time. The transition will take decades. So there's no overnight fix to this. And in the meantime, again, one blown transformer, one blackout, one fuel shortage, and the illusion cracks. And welcome to Armageddon. Civilization, to us, and to a degree, looks spiritual. But again, it runs on oil, steel, cement, and ammonia. The real priests, if you will, wear hard hats. The real gods live in pipelines and refineries. And again, the real apocalypse won't come from heaven. It's going to come when the energy runs out. And when we realize it's too late, that the gods we killed were the ones keeping the lights on. So next time you see someone out there with a hard hat or a truck in front of you in traffic and you're frustrated because you're late to work, consider what I just said. And like always, guys, remember to eat more, well, lift more, eat more, rest more, love more, and hate less. Thank you, guys.